So you have learned how to print data using cout. Now let's see how we can control the formatting of data. So let's use cout to print a bunch of labels like spring, followed by nice. Then we add endl, and on the second line, we print summer, followed by hot. Now if we run this program, you can see that our labels are right next to each other. But what if you want to organize them into columns? That's when we use one of the stream manipulators in C++. So a stream manipulator is a function that we can use for manipulating or modifying a stream. So first we go on the top and include another file from the standard library called iomanip, which is short for IO manipulator. In this file, we have a bunch of functions for manipulating our streams. So one of them is setW, which is short for setWidth. We can call this function and give it the number of characters for reserving for the data that comes after. So once we call this, then we're going to have 10 characters allocated for printing spring. Let me show you. So let's run the program. Look, in the first row, we have 10 characters and spring is displayed here. So it's right aligned by default. I'll show you how to make it left aligned in a second. But before we do so, let's allocate another 10 characters for the second label. Nice. So over here, once again, we call setW and pass 10. So we are reserving 10 characters for printing this label. Take a look. So in the first row, we have 2 columns. And each column is 10 characters long. Beautiful. Now, what if you want to make these left aligned? Well, we have another stream manipulator called left. If you apply this, everything that comes after will be left aligned. Take a look. So now both spring and nice are left aligned. Okay. So this is what we call a sticky manipulator. Sticky means once we apply it, it's going to be in effect until we change it. In contrast, setW is not sticky, so it only applies to what comes after. Okay. Now, in contrast to left, we also have right, which we don't have to apply because right align is assumed by default. Okay. So let's apply left here and organize the second row into columns. So once again, we call setW and pass 10. Then we use chaining to print summer. And one more time, we call setW with 10. Okay. Now let's run our program one more time. So now we have this beautiful table with 2 rows and 2 columns. But there's a tiny problem in our code. Look, the formatting of our code is a little bit messed up. So what we see here is a little bit different from what we see in the output. But we can easily solve this problem. We can take this part out and code it separately. So cout left. We're saying everything from this point onward is going to be left aligned. Now we don't need to apply this here. And now our code is beautifully formatted. So what we see over here is exactly like what we see on the output. Great. So this is how we can format our data into columns. Now let's see how we can format floating point numbers. So I'm going to delete everything here and print a number like 12.34567. Let's see what we get. So we get this number with 4 digits after the decimal point. So our number is rounded because over here we have 5 digits after the decimal point. Now on your machine, depending on the compiler you use, you might see this number displayed in scientific notation. If you want to force the number to be printed using the fixed point notation, you have to use another manipulator called fixed. Now, when we run our program, we're going to see a slightly different result. Take a look. So instead of 4 digits after the decimal point, we see 6. This is the default value assumed here. If you want to have full control over the number of digits after the decimal point, you should use another manipulator called set precision. So if we pass, let's say 2 here, now we see 2 digits after the decimal point. If we pass 0, we see no digits after the decimal point. And if we pass a large number like 10, we see extra trailing zeros. This is how this works. Now, both these manipulators are also sticky, which means once we apply them, they're going to be in effect until we change them. So if we go over here and add a new line, and then on the next line, we print a number like 22.123456, both these numbers are printed according to these manipulators, okay? Now, for your exercise, I want you to write a program to print a table like this. So we have 2 rows and 2 columns, but note that our text labels are left aligned, but our numbers are right aligned. So pause the video and work on this for a few minutes, then come back see my solution. All right, this one is pretty easy. We're going to use cout to print the header row of the table. So here we have course and students. Now I want to allocate 15 characters for the first column. So here we call set w and pass 15. And for the second column, I want to allocate 10 characters. Okay. And then we add endl for the next line. Before going further, let's run our program and make sure everything works. So here we have 2 columns, but as you can see, our columns are right aligned by default, which is not what we want. So right at the beginning, we left align everything. Now let's run our program one more time. So this is the header row. It works beautifully. So let's move on to the second row. Now we don't need another cout statement because we can chain everything using the stream insertion operator. So I'm going to remove the semicolon. Now for the second row, first we're going to print C++ and then the number of students, which is 100. Now we want to make sure that all the data is properly organized into columns. So we need to allocate 15 characters for the first column, just like the first row. So set width of 15. And for the second one, set width of 10. Okay, let's run our program and see what we get. So everything is left aligned, but we want to right align the number, right? So just before 100, we use the right manipulator, and then we use the left manipulator again, because as I told you before, the left and right manipulators are sticky. So once we apply them, they're going to be in effect until we change them. Okay, so let's see what we get. All right, this is exactly what I wanted. The only thing I missed was the endl over here. Now the third row. So to save time, I'm going to duplicate this line. There is a tiny problem because we have a semicolon over here. Good. Now in the third row, we're going to print JavaScript followed by 50 students. Let's take a look. All right, this is exactly what I wanted to print. So all of our texts are left aligned and our numbers are right aligned.